do want to take a second. Please give a big round of applause for Xavier.
I'm here to talk to you about implicit bias. When Marissa wrote me about this about a month ago, maybe? I don't know. I don't even know. I have no idea what this was. I thought that I figured out along the way. I had to do some research upon research upon research upon research, and then I had to look within myself. So first we're gonna read the definition. Now there's many different definitions. I know this because I've been researching for a month. But I'm going to read the one that stuck to me the most. That implicit bias means have an attitude towards people or associate stereotypes with them unconsciously. So you don't necessarily know that you're doing this. So let's not beat ourselves up right away because we don't necessarily know we're doing this. But to have this conversation, I want to strip some things out of it. I want to go on the surface. A lot of implicit bias does with race and racism, and does with gender identity, and everything that falls under all the marginalized people in the world. But I just want to go flat on the surface so we can understand it first, and then we can go back and deal with what we have within us on our own. First, I have some examples. When I say peanut butter, what pops in your head? Jelly. Peanut butter don't want to do with jelly. Peanut butter is by itself. It's peanut butter. It never said it was born and jelly. George Washington Carver didn't say I'm making peanut butter and jelly, but that's what pops in our head. That's how we associate with peanut butter is peanut butter and jelly. My son has a best friend. He only eats peanut butter and honey. Set me straight real quick. I didn't have honey for his peanut butter. But jobs. Now we can go forever with jobs, but what gender do you think of when you think of a construction worker or electrician? A nurse? A secretary? Exactly. It's what we were shown, what we were taught. And something that sticks on and it lives within us. Brandon, can you come here real quick? Somebody clap for Brandon.
Lord help me. The example I was going to bring up was ASD, also known as autism spectrum disorder. I'm just going to read off the little card I got here, because that makes it easier. When people think of ASD, they often think of the headphones, social ineptitude, or those who are very low functioning. But if I told you that ASD is one of, if not the most complex disorders known, then maybe that might confuse you a little bit because you have that one image in your head of autism. Maybe of, you could think like a good doctor. I think a lot of you, that's where you get your main idea of what autism is. But although that show does a good job at depicting autism, that's one small space of it, one pinpoint, when it's in fact far more complex, and I would argue one of the most complex disorders known. But implicit bias causes people to assume that ASD is very cut and dry. I myself actually do have ASD, but you don't see me kind of like wearing headphones all the time. It's just something I have to work with, and it's just something that I deal with. And then you have people who are very low functioning. It's such a wide spectrum. Yet implicit bias causes us to think of one image when we think of ASD. Thank you.
When me and Brandon was talking about this, I was like, he's telling me like, yeah, but this is in itself one. People don't think that people with ASD will come up here and present that. That takes a lot of strength with ASD, but it takes a lot of strength, period, to give up yourself. So thank you, Brandon. I have your payment later on. So I'm a foster parent, and in the foster game, there's a lot of implicit biases. I mean, I started off with them right away. the kid gets into my house, the first thing I think, oh, the parents must be on drugs. The parent doesn't know how to parent. There's always something that the birth parent did that they're bad people all of a sudden. That's the first thing that pops in my head. What pops in other people's head about the foster parent, oh, they're so great. They're so excellent. They don't do anything wrong. They're great. And so what happens in the middle of that is I'm feeling like, oh yeah, I'm so great. Everyone tells me I'm so great. But I have this deep, dark secret that I don't even like these parents that they're sending me their kids. And the birth parents are thinking, they're here to steal my child. They want to steal my child. So now, what happens with implicit bias is, next page, they said I didn't prepare yet, that's right. What happens is, so the birth parents got to take classes. They have to meet with guardian, how do you say it? Guardian ad litem. Boom, that. Guardian ad litem. They got, I think we do very, very little. Caseworkers, judges at court dates, and lawyers, and they're meeting with all these people. Oh yeah, and then their own kid they have to meet with too. So they're doing all these things and all this work to get their child back. And in my head, it's like they're gonna mess up again. When are they gonna mess up again? In the beginning, I wasn't helping them achieve what they need to achieve. My implicit bias wasn't letting me. I said, the caseworker deal with that. They deal with that. But then I learned that if I can get these thoughts out of my head of what the world, society has said about people in foster care, if I could, parents that have kids in foster care, if I could just erase that thought out of my head and start fresh. So one time I was in lab, I got a kid, my thought was, that birth mom was on drugs. Because this kid had some things going on and feeding tubes. That mother had to be on drugs. It couldn't be that she just has like a rare disorder that caused her esophagus not to grow fully and it's a doctor thing and all that. Nope, it was because mother was on drugs. I know mother very well now. Mother's not on drugs. But in my head for the first 3 months, that was ringing in my head, this baby's never going home, mother's on drugs, she got to take all these classes, it's never going to happen. My bias was not letting me help her. But when I flipped, just like this paper, when I flipped my bias around, and I got to know that this was the reality of what these parents were doing. Like, most of these kids, like I had like 11 to 13 kids in my house. There were zero. I had 0 babies tested positive for drugs. I had 0 babies neglected and just left on the side of the road. I had a couple babies who mom was single and needed a break and didn't have family. So she didn't know where to turn. So she got a caseworker and we worked with her like that. I have this kid that came because mom just couldn't, mentally she couldn't handle having her child. And so I stay about 4 or 5 times a year driving down to Chicago, which is not that bad. So Ezra could spend time with his first mama, we call her first mama, Dominique. And so we spend time with her, and we know her, but I would not have been able to get to know her if I would have had those implicit biases in my head of who she is when she's nowhere near that. So we have to start with I. I had all these examples about what your bias could be, but I had to start with I. And when you work on the I, that's then only and then you can be a part of the we, the us. Because if you're not, then you're just working on, you're not doing the work that we are doing over here. It's going to take all of us to dismantle all of these things. The list goes on. We keep adding to the list of social justice things that need to be broken down. We're adding and we're not taking away. So this list is going to go on. But I believe that if we can stop and breathe and think, we can end implicit bias. So I got a couple ways that you can think about. Focus on people as individuals and not as them or those people over there, as one person, as one, just them individually. Intentionally work on it yourself. So like when things pop up in the head of this or stereotype pop up, just within yourself, like, oh, I just thought this. It's not like that. And you will learn that by spending time with that person individually. Like I learned that by spending time with those birth parents. And that's how I learned that they weren't anywhere near what my implicit bias was telling me. See things from their point of view. Listen. Don't just speak, but listen. And increase your exposure. Go to the local food pantry. I mean, I struggled with this growing up, that I would not eat at my church food pantry because I thought that everyone was going to think I was poor. And we were poor, but not as poor as other people, so intersectionality was different. But I thought that people thought I was poor, so I never went to like the food. We have a food thing downstairs in our church called St. Vincent and Paul. And I never went because I thought people thought I was poor. So that means I'm thinking that about people that are coming to eat. And then I go upstairs with my youth and they're all like, so then I forget that part that I need to work on, because now I'm being uplifted so high that I can't see the low person that was down there just judging people that I'm smiling in their face, you know? So you have to spend some time, go into the places that make you uncomfortable. Take a friend. And then, only then, once you get the eye, we can become me. All right? My voice is killing me, y'all. It ain't gonna be no rapping right now. You feel me? But guess what? After all that, I will say, I'm still standing.